Hello, my name is Renata, and I will be your guide for this evening as we discuss self-talk. This is part one of a three-part series, and in this segment, we will be discussing comparison and judgment as it relates to self-talk. Why is this important, and why are we here? We all have voices inside of our head. And that might sound like something that is reserved only for people with severe mental illness, but that's really not the case. The reality is we all have it. And so different traditions, different philosophers, different thought leaders call this different things. From the perspective of spirituality, it might be called the ego. I really enjoy Michael Singer. He is a very renowned author. He has a few books. One of them is called The Untethered Soul. And in that book, he calls it the roommate inside of our head. And so what it really is this idea. If you've ever had an experience, if you can even just think right now, bring to mind an experience where you've been fully immersed in the present moment, where you've just been fully in your body, in your being, in the present moment. For me, this happens when I'm in nature. It happens when I'm doing something I really, really, really love, like snorkeling or being in the woods or doing a puzzle or eating a really delicious meal. So things that really pull me into full presence, full embodiment, and I'm just experiencing what I'm experiencing in that present moment. And there's no narrative going on in my mind about it. There's no judgment. There's no story track. It's just me fully existing in that present moment. I'm not in my head about it. And so those moments for a lot of my regular life, and I think a lot of many people's regular lives, are not the norm. They don't make up the majority of our life experience. So most of the time, I'm not snorkeling in Key West or in the mountains, fully immersed in a hike and in nature. Most of the time, I am operating in my regular day-to-day life, in what that looks like going to work and uh, paying bills and taking care of animals and whatever it is, right? We all have a collective basket of things that we are responsible for. And that's entirely valid, but oftentimes we get wrapped up in the mundaneness of it all. And oftentimes we begin to, our egoic mind or our the self-talk that's going on begins to start to project narratives and thought tracks onto what we're experiencing. And so rather than fully experiencing the moment as it is for what it is, we start to place narratives, storylines on it, on the present moment, based upon what we've experienced in the past. And this is true of what we're experiencing in our reality, but it's also true of what we're experiencing internally. So I'm sure Many of you are familiar with the phrase, we are our own worst critic. And that's really, really true for a lot of us, So what we're going to be looking at is how do we begin to bring awareness to the self-talk narrative or the storyline that is being told. And if you look at this through the lens of brain activity and the lens of how many thoughts that we think a day, I've seen pretty wide-ranging numbers, but it's something like 60 to 100,000 thoughts a day that we are thinking, that this self-talk track and narrative is thinking. And whether or not we are aware of those 60 to 100,000 thoughts a day, well, you're just not. You're just not. I promise you. You're just not. And if you've ever sat down to meditate for 5 minutes or 20 minutes, there's a lot of thoughts. There's a lot of activity. It's incessant. And so the aim of this series is to begin to name it and witness it and observe it. Observe some of these thoughts and to begin to maybe just examine with neutrality, with objectivity, with compassion, and with kindness what that thought track, what those narratives, what those storylines are saying, and beginning to also qualify and understand, is this helpful for me in feeling at peace and content and loving with myself? Is this helping me to feel at peace and content and loving with the people in my life that I'm in close relationship to and really care about? Is this helping me to feel encouraged and empowered to go after my goals and to go after designing my life and living my life in a way that feels good to me? Or is it detrimental or counterproductive to that? Is the thought track in my mind, excuse me, is it life-giving and life-affirming, or is it life-draining and detrimental? So let's dive in. I want to start looking at the concept of comparison, because comparison is something that many, many, many of us fall prey to. And comparison in and of itself is neutral. It's literally just saying, okay, here's some ice cream. Here's some ice cream. This flavor of ice cream is vanilla, and this flavor of ice cream is chocolate. Comparatively, they're different. Comparatively, if we neutrally compare them, we might just name and observe the differences and the similarities between the two. Well, so they're both ice cream, right? So maybe they're both cold. Maybe they're both creamy. Maybe vanilla feels a little bit more soft and subtle and sweet, and maybe chocolate feels a little bit more rich and full-bodied and maybe even a little bit bitter or bold. But inherently, we're just naming, oh, there are some differences and there are some similarities. There's nothing wrong inherently with comparing who you are and where you are in your life and how you are showing up in your life with someone else. I think in many ways it's very natural. And I think also in many ways it's a form of even evolution or expansion to look at somebody else and to observe them and say, oh, okay, well, I'm vanilla. And I see that that person is expressing as chocolate. And I want to, I like that. I kind of want to move towards that. I want to be maybe a little bit more like chocolate, or I can see that and recognize that and be open and curious about what it might be like to be chocolate. I think inherently that isn't a bad thing. But I think that some of the key points here are around being open and being curious with what it might be like to be chocolate. So now that's very different than saying to yourself this thought track that says, oh, well, that flavor is chocolate. Chocolate is gross. The color brown is gross. I can't believe that someone would choose to be chocolate. Or, so that's judgment. Even I will say, I want to be clear, even to make the distinction that you like or dislike something is a judgment. We're playing in the realm of polarity, which is judgment, which is to say this is good and this is bad and this is right and this is wrong. And so what we're wanting to do here is work in this realm of nuance. And the realm of nuance means that we're being open, that we're being curious, that we're being in right relationship to comparison and to judgment. And what that means, again, is that we're being open, we're being curious, we are exploring and experimenting, and we're saying, ooh, what would it feel like to be chocolate? Ooh, what would it be like to be really rich and full-bodied? And oh my gosh, what if I added some nuts or cherries in here? What would that be like? I wonder, right? Or there's this way that we can take it where we can make this other flavor wrong for being different than us, saying, oh, chocolate is, oh, it's ugly. It's tastes disgusting. It's blah, 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 right? It's better to be vanilla. That's a judgment. Or that's a judgment of somebody else. That's a judgment of the chocolate ice cream for being chocolate ice cream. Or we can take it and use judgment to mean something is wrong with us. And we can say, oh my God, chocolate is so amazing. I cannot even fathom that they can be so delicious. And I can never beat chocolate because it's just so bold and it's so full bodied and it's so rich and it's so delicious. And here I am, and I'm just plain and I'm just boring and I have nothing exciting about me, on and on and on. So these are the kinds of thoughts that are going on in some capacity, in some spectrum, right? I obviously am embellishing here and I'm using this example to really illustrate how this shows up in our minds. But this is going on in all of us in some capacity, unless you have reached some super high level of enlightenment, self realization, sage level, mastery level. We have this dichotomy of existing as human beings where we naturally judge and we naturally compare. And again, in and of itself, these two functions are not wrong, but it's important that we begin in our self-talk, which is our thoughts, the stories, the narratives that we're assigning to our experience, that we start to become aware and notice, am I judging or comparing in a way that is helpful and constructive and expansive and life-giving, like, oh, let me explore what it would be like to be chocolate, or let me explore what it would be like to be vanilla, not because I'm wrong for being the opposite or being something different than what that is, but because I just think that that would be really fun to experiment and explore. So are we in being in a right relationship to these things in a way, again, that helps us to evolve and expand and grow and experience something new, experience and discover a new side or aspect of ourselves? Or are we using it? Are we using judgment? Are we using comparison to make ourselves wrong, to make other people wrong, to belittle ourselves or belittle other people? And we could look at this from a moralistic perspective, but I'm less interested in looking at it from a moralistic perspective and more interested in looking at it through a utility perspective. Because whether or not you think in your own mind that you are right or wrong about yourself or about someone else. So really, like, let's just name really quickly. Let me complete that thought. So whether or not you think you're right or wrong, in my perspective and the whole, mm, yeah, the whole perspective that I want to introduce in this series is it helpful? Is it functional? Is it life-giving and life-affirming for you? Or is it detrimental to you? Or is it harmful to you? And I think that that's really more important than whether it's right or wrong. So a couple of really common things are have to do with comparison and judgment. We tend to get caught up in looking at our peers or other people our age and looking and seeing what the masses or the majority of people are doing, and then judging ourselves as either in alignment with that and doing really well, or not in alignment with that and doing really bad. So, for example, some common ones that I see, that I've seen with myself and that I see with my clients, have to do with getting married and being married or being divorced, having kids or not having kids, having or owning a home or owning a specific high up position, some sort of status symbol professionally, or not. Being fulfilled in goals or dreams or not. So these are some of the ways where we look out and we can see, okay, most of society at the age of 35 is married, happily married, and has kids, and maybe both people work, or maybe one person works, but they're just doing life and raising kids, and it's so great and it's so wonderful and they're so happy and blah, 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 blah. And then if you are 35 years old and maybe you work at Starbucks and have a roommate and don't have any kids, but always wanted kids, and you're not married, but you always wanted to be married, it's very easy for that inner critic, for that self-talk, to make yourself feel like there's something wrong with you. But that's just not true. We all are walking an entirely unique journey. And also, in many ways, a very similar journey, experienced very differently and uniquely. And there are, yes, mainstream or archetypal, maybe pathways or ways of being that happen for many people. But what happens with judgment and comparison is that we see that from this exterior lens, and we think that we know everything that's going on here. We assume and think that these people are completely happy and that everything's going well, but we don't ever really know. And one of the beautiful things that I have come to see through my line of work, the line of work that where I have worked with people who have been cashiers at Walmart or baristas at Starbucks, all the way to being vice presidents of Fortune 100 companies and everything in between. And what I have seen and what I have learned is that we are all going through our own struggles and our own battles in our own ways. And so it's easy to look at someone else and assume that we know that they're living life right, or they're living life better than us, or they've got it all figured out and we don't. But that is this self-talk, this self-critic narrative that, again, is it helpful? Is it helpful? So if we look at it, if you are, so let's come back to the spectrum. If you are a cashier at Walmart and you're making $10 an hour and you observe this VP of a Fortune 100 company making $1,000 an hour, you might look at this and say, okay, I kind of like that, right? I wonder what it would be like to experience this or something like this, right? Hmm, what would I need to do, right? Like, so there's an approach to this where when we're in right relationship with comparison and judgment, it can be utilized. Again, utilized utility. What is the utility that this is serving? It can be utilized and channeled in a way with yourself that is more through this inner champion lens that says, I really want to go to school to learn what that would be like. What do I need to do that? How do I begin to take steps forward in this direction? Because this is something that I want to experience. Because it sounds fun, because it sounds enjoyable, because maybe it sounds more easy, because maybe it will afford me other experiences that sound exciting and joyful to me. Or maybe I want to do something kind of similar, but maybe not that exact thing. Right? So there's this openness and there's this curiosity and there's this, okay, I see that and I like that and I want to set my sights on that and I want to move toward that. Wonderful. But there's also more often this approach where we see that and we say, ah, fuck them. They probably had a silver spoon handed to them. They're probably corrupt. They're probably uh severely, I don't know, whatever. Who knows? Like there's a million stories, right, that we can make up about this person. Or maybe they're really unhappy because they probably work 80 hours a week and they're just miserable anyway. So maybe I don't want that. All the while missing the point of what we really want and missing what our heart's calling and desire is calling us toward. The thought track that happens in our mind oftentimes gets in the way of our ability, excuse me, of our ability to stay centered and focused and present with where we're at and where we want to go. And so, one of the very foundational, fundamental practices around this that we're going to keep talking about in this entire series, and it really is just an ongoing dynamic practice, is acceptance. What is acceptance? I think in many ways, acceptance is ephemeral until it is experienced, until you actually do it and be it. Acceptance is saying, I'm here. and I want to be here. I am 500 pounds and I want to be 200 pounds. I am flat broke and I want to be super rich. I am single and I want to be in a relationship. I am lonely and I want to feel companionship. I am unhappy and depressed and I want to feel happy and satisfied. We're always in this state of here's where I am and here's where I want to be. It's very natural, it's very human. It's part of being human. But what happens again is that in this gap, in this differential, there's all of this space to critique and judge and blame and shame ourselves for where we are and everything that came before us being where we are. What happens when we do that is it keeps us stuck where we are because we're in resistance to it and we're fighting it. And we say, I hate myself for where I am. I hate the choices that I've made that have led me here. I hate the people that have done the things to me that have made me be here and where I am. I hate where I am. I hate these people for being over here and there's something wrong with them and they just got everything handed to them and blah, 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 blah. It's pretty insidious, this inner judgment and inner thought track, and my hand hurts from holding it in a clenched fist like that. So, what we do when we practice acceptance, here I am. I'm here. I'm here. Maybe it's not pretty. Maybe it's challenging in many ways. Maybe it's ugly in many ways and messy, not what you want. Maybe it's annoying and frustrating and painful. Maybe it's hard to sit with. All of that is okay. Where we get into trouble is when we try to deny that. Where we get in trouble is when we try to make ourselves wrong for that, or make other people wrong, or make the world wrong for that, for experiencing what we're experiencing. And we close off. We close our heart and we close our mind and we judge and we compare and we criticize and we blame and we shame. But all that does is continue to harden, continue to close, continue to blind. Dear Lord Almighty, can we turn that down? Whew. Hold on, please. Oh my gosh. So acceptance, kind of like forgiveness, is not about, it's not about saying, I want to be here forever. It's not about saying where I am, who I am is okay or is perfect or is what I want even. But what it is saying is that it is what it is. And I am where I am. And I am who I am in this moment. And that is all that I can be. I can't be this version of myself. I can only be this version of myself. It's accepting who and where you are now and what you're experiencing now, your life circumstances now, your relationships now, your relationship to yourself now, who you are now, what you're experiencing now, and saying, okay, it is. It's not denying it. It's not fighting it. It's not being in resistance to it. It's not avoiding it. It's not escaping it. It's allowing. It's allowing it. It's observing it. It's being as neutral as you possibly can in your observation of it. And what happens when you begin to practice this, when you begin to start to introduce thoughts of self-compassion, thoughts of forgiveness, thoughts of accepting and letting go and releasing in service of where you want to go and who you want to be, regardless of what is or who you've been. What happens then is that all of this mental energy that has been spent overthinking, overanalyzing, over critiquing, over judging, over pointing fingers at somebody and everybody else, you reclaim all of that. And when you reclaim it, when you neutralize it, you reclaim it. And when you reclaim it, now you have freed up your mental energy, your mental capacity to objectively, intentionally, purposefully, strategically walk the journey of unfolding and of becoming from this to this. You begin to embody this here because you're not making yourself wrong for being here and forcing yourself to be here through criticism and critique and judgment and shame. Acceptance is a really important key to love, to loving yourself, to loving other people, and to loving this world. And I understand in many ways that's a very, very tall order because unless you are completely in denial, it it doesn't take a lot to look at our world that's full of war and hatred and violence and suffering to look at that and accept it seems like on the surface counterintuitive or maybe delusional or like giving up. But that's not what acceptance is. And that's not what forgiveness is either. And that's not what this is about in our internal thought track either. But it's about saying, I can't change what I did in the past. And I can't change what humanity has done in the past. I can't even change what humanity collectively is doing right now. I can't change what my partner is doing or what my friend or coworker or boss is doing. In many ways, acceptance is surrender. It's not about doing this from a place of losing power. It's about doing this from a place of gaining power, from remembering your power, from calling back your energy, your attention, your focus, and neutralizing it so that you can apply it and channel it in a constructive and helpful way. There's nothing wrong with holding on to judgment that doesn't serve you. If you want to continue to judge and blame and shame yourself, you can. You can. It's your choice. I just want to ask you, is it serving you? Is it helpful for you to look in the mirror and tell yourself that you're ugly, or that your nose is too big, or that your stretch marks are too funky, or that your belly isn't fat enough, or that your legs have too much cellulite? What is that? What purpose does that serve? Does it help you to feel loving and kind? Does it help you to feel empowered to want to be loving and kind to other people, to go after your goals and dreams? Or does it have some other effect? Does it make you feel like shit about yourself? And then in feeling like shit about yourself, do you engage in habits and behaviors that help you to feel better for feeling shit about yourself, but that don't actually contribute to you being the version of yourself or living the life that you want to be living? So an example of this is like self-medicating, whatever that looks like. It can look like alcohol. It could look like drugs. It could look like food. It could look like sex. It could look like gambling. It could look like shopping. It could look like spending time with all of your friends so you never have to spend time alone. So that you don't have to be with this really mean critic in your own mind. So acceptance is not about saying everything is just perfect and everything is just dandy and okay, great, it's fine how it is. It's just about saying it is what it is, and what is is. And all I can do about it now is choose what to do now or next. To choose maybe to not beat myself up because I have cellulite on my thighs, but instead love my body for being able to walk. Wow. Thank you. Wow. Oh shit. We just introduced gratitude and appreciation into this mix. Oh, that's life-giving. Okay. All right. Now I'm focused on the fact that I can walk and how helpful that is. Now I'm not going down this negative thought spiral about how ugly my body is and how Susan down the street has a perfect body and great tits and a perfect ass. And I don't. And also, by the way, while I'm at it, I also don't have this perfect thing and this perfect thing, right? Now we're just like, oh my God, I can walk. Oh my God. Oh my God, this cup of coffee is so good. Oh my God, well, you know what? Actually, my hair's kind of like, my hair's on point today. Okay. And my face is kind of cute, you know? So we begin with acceptance, this upward spiral now, rather than this downward spiral. And the more that we do this in our brain, the more that we train our brain to do this, the more that we do this. It's like building a muscle, but instead of exercising the muscle of negativity and of life draining judgment and comparison, we are exercising the muscle of self-acceptance and self-compassion and kindness and neutrality. And in doing that, again, we free up energy to welcome more of that in our lives and not in like a dismissive kind of way, but in an accepting kind of way. And is saying, okay, well, maybe my body does feel out of balance. Rather than make myself wrong or judge myself for that, how can I love myself into finding what balance feels like for my body and what health and vitality feels like for my body? Not so that I can look like Susan next door, whatever, I forgot her name already, so sorry if was it Sally or Susan? I don't know. But rather than trying to be something I'm not, how can I love who I am now and love the unfoldment of this journey of evolution and expansion and deepening into more love? I have a couple of questions for you to reflect on. One is, what utility of function Is judging myself or others serving? Is it helpful or harmful to my overall well-being? When I notice myself judging myself or others, how can I offer greater compassion, forgiveness, or acceptance? How do I want to transmute unhelpful judgment into helpful action? So reflect on this, practice this. Meditation is a really powerful tool for this because in meditation, you can sit and you can set a timer for 5 minutes and you can just allow what is there. Allow your emotions to be what they are. If you're feeling irritable, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling joyful and exuberant, just be with yourself and just notice and observe neutrally and allow yourself to be and feel and experience yourself as you are in the present moment for 5 minutes without making yourself wrong for any of it, but just allowing it to be and accepting what is. Practice this. Practice noticing the thoughts in your head. Practice noticing the patterns where your self-judgment or judgment of others surfaces the most. And just begin getting curious. Just begin getting curious. Is this helpful? Is this serving a purpose anymore? Maybe it did. Maybe it was protecting me, right? Judgment and comparison is really has a lot to do with we're just trying to protect ourselves, keep ourselves safe. It's not about making ourselves wrong or blaming ourselves or blaming other people. It's about letting go of those and choosing to open up to more love and more curiosity, more understanding and more compassion, more grace and more kindness. And when we can do this with ourselves, it becomes easier to do it with other people. This is being the change that you want to see in the world. It begins with you. When you can do it for yourself, you can do it for other people. Thank you for being here for part 1 of this self-talk series. I'm very curious to hear your experience of this, if it was helpful, if the approach, what it was like for you. I'm just beginning hosting these in this way, and I have a very strong desire for these to be helpful and functional and to make sense. And so if you have any feedback, I would love to hear it in the comments. Or anyone that's witnessing this that knows me, please reach out. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Anything that would be more helpful for you, I'd love to work that in as I expand and grow in my journey. Thank you for being here. I love you. Thank you.